The automated announcements on public buses are supposed to be generic. Next stop, 5th Street. Please stand behind the yellow line. Basic safety stuff. You hear them so often you stop listening. They're just background noise. Until one night, an announcement said my name. I was on the last bus of the night, the 2:30 a.m. route that runs through the industrial district. I'd been at my friend's place longer than planned, missed the earlier buses, and this was my only option. The bus was empty except for me. Not unusual for that hour. I sat near the middle, tired, half asleep, just wanting to get home. The automated voice came through the speakers, the usual pleasant, neutral tone. But instead of announcing a stop, it said, "Good evening, David." My eyes snapped open. I sat up straight, looking around the empty bus. The driver was up front, separated by the partition, hadn't turned around. There was no one else on board, no one who could have said my name. I waited, heart picking up speed, wondering if I'd imagined it. Maybe I'd dozed off. Maybe I'd dreamed it. Then the voice came again. "David, please remain seated. Your stop is coming up." My mouth went dry. The voice was still that same automated tone, calm, professional, but it was addressing me directly, using my name, my actual name. I looked at the display screen at the front of the bus. It showed the next stop, Riverside Industrial Park. That wasn't my stop. I lived on the other side of town, at least 20 minutes away. I had 10 more stops to go. "There must be some mistake," I said out loud, my voice shaky. I didn't know who I was talking to. The driver didn't react. The bus just kept moving. The announcement continued. "David, please prepare to exit at the next stop. This is important." "No," I said, louder now. "That's not my stop. I need to go to Westbrook." Silence. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of tires on asphalt. The bus continued down the dark road, passing empty warehouses and chain-link fences. No streetlights out here, just darkness and the occasional yellow glow from a security lamp. Then, "David, you need to get off at the next stop. Please do not ignore these instructions." There was something different in the voice now, still automated, still that pleasant tone, but it was edged in it, an urgency, like someone trying very hard to sound calm when they're not. "Why?" I called out. "Why do I need to get off?" No response. I stood up and walked toward the front, gripping the poles as the bus swayed. "Excuse me," I said to the driver, "did you hear that announcement?" He glanced at me in the mirror. Middle-aged guy, tired eyes. "Hear what?" "The announcement. It said my name. It told me to get off at the next stop." He frowned slowly. "Must have been hearing things, buddy. We're nowhere near your stop. You said Westbrook, right? That's still 15 minutes out." I backed away from him, feeling stupid but also terrified. The bus kept moving. The windows showed nothing but darkness outside. And then the announcement came again, and this time it was louder. "David, exit at the next stop. Do not remain on this bus." The driver's head snapped up. He heard it too. I saw his eyes widened in the mirror. "What the hell?" he muttered. "You heard it that time," I said, my voice cracking. He didn't answer, just stared at the road ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. The bus started slowing down. I felt it in my stomach, that deceleration. We were approaching a stop, but when I looked out the window, there was nothing there. No shelter, no bench, no sign, just an empty stretch of road next to an abandoned lot. The bus came to a complete stop. The doors hissed open. "Please exit now, David." The voice was insistent now, almost pleading. The pleasant tone was still there, but underneath it was something else, something desperate. I stood in the aisle, frozen. The open doors showed nothing but darkness outside. No lights, no buildings, nothing. Just an empty road in the middle of nowhere. "I'm not getting off," I said. "David, please, you need to exit the bus. Now." "No," I said, my voice stronger this time. "That's not my stop. I need to go to Westbrook." Silence. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of tires on asphalt. The bus continued down the dark road, passing empty warehouses and chain-link fences. No streetlights out here, just darkness and the occasional yellow glow from a security lamp. Then, "David, you need to exit the bus. This is your final warning." "Close the doors," I said to the driver. "Just close them and keep driving." He hesitated, hands hovering over the controls. "Please," I said. The announcement came one more time, and now it was almost angry. The pleasant tone was gone completely. "Exit, now." "No," I said, louder. "I'm not getting off this bus. Take me to my stop. Take me to Westbrook. That's where I paid to go." The doors stayed open for another 10 seconds, 15. The cold air kept pouring in. I heard that sound again outside. Closer now, definitely footsteps. Something walking toward the bus from the darkness. Then, the doors suddenly hissed shut. The driver jerked in his seat like he'd been shocked. The bus lurched forward, accelerating quickly, and we pulled away from that empty spot on the road. I stumbled back to my seat and sat down hard, my whole body shaking. The announcement didn't come again. We drove in silence for the next 15 minutes. The driver didn't look at me, didn't say anything. When we finally reached Westbrook, my actual stop, he called it out in his own voice, not the automated system, his voice. "Westbrook, this is your stop." I got up on shaky legs and moved toward the front. As I passed him, I said, "What was that?" He shook his head, wouldn't look at me. "I don't know, but you made the right call. Don't get off where you're not supposed to." "Has it happened before?" He didn't answer, just stared straight ahead, waiting for me to get off. I stepped down onto the sidewalk. The doors closed immediately, and the bus pulled away faster than it should have. I watched it disappear down the street, taillights fading into the distance. I walked home quickly, looking over my shoulder every few steps. When I got inside and locked the door, I looked up the route online, checked the stop where the bus had tried to let me off. There was nothing there. No official stop, no landmark, just an empty stretch of road next to an abandoned lot. But when I zoomed in on the map, I saw something. A small notation, a memorial marker. I clicked on it. 5 years ago, a passenger got off the bus at that exact spot, late at night, similar circumstances. He'd been found 3 days later in the abandoned lot nearby. The case was never solved. His name was David. Different last name, but same first name. I reported the incident to the transit authority the next day. They said there was no record of any unusual announcements. The system doesn't have that capability, they told me. It can't address individual passengers. It's not possible. But I heard it. The driver heard it too. I still take the bus sometimes, but never that late, never the 2:30 a.m. route. And whenever I hear an automated announcement now, I listen carefully, waiting to hear if it says my name again, waiting to see if it asks me to get off somewhere I'm not supposed to be. Because next time, I don't know if I'll be strong enough to refuse. I've taken the same bus to work for 3 years. Same route, same stops, same 22 minutes door to door. I could do it with my eyes closed. I know every turn, every pothole, every building we pass. When you ride the same route that many times, it becomes part of your routine. You stop paying attention. It's just muscle memory. That's probably why it took me so long to notice something was wrong. It was a Thursday morning, nothing special. I got on at my usual stop, 7:15 a.m., grabbed a seat on the right side like always, and pulled out my phone. The bus was half full. Normal commuters. People in business clothes, earbuds in, staring at screens. Everything felt completely ordinary. We pulled away from the stop and I started scrolling through emails, barely aware of the movement. But after a few minutes, something nagged at me. A weird feeling, like when you know you've forgotten something but can't remember what. I looked up from my phone and glanced out the window. We were passing Coleman Street. I recognized the corner store, the blue awning, the bus bench, but something was off about it. It took me a second to realize what. We should have passed Coleman 10 minutes ago. It's one of the first stops on the route, but we were just passing it now, which meant... I sat up straighter and looked around. Nobody else seemed concerned. Everyone was absorbed in their phones or staring blankly ahead. I checked the display at the front of the bus. It showed the route number, 68, same as always. Everything looked normal. We made a turn and I saw the street sign for Riverside Avenue. My stomach flipped. Riverside is the stop before Coleman. We'd just gone backwards. But that didn't make sense. The bus was moving forward. I could feel it. We were definitely going in a forward direction. I watched more carefully now. The next sign we passed said Oakmont, then Harrison, then Pine Grove. We were going backwards through the route. Every stop was in reverse order, but the bus was moving forward the entire time. My hands went cold. I looked around at the other passengers again, waiting for someone else to notice, to say something. A woman across from me was reading a book. A guy in a suit near the front was asleep. Everyone was acting like this was completely normal, like we weren't traveling through the city in the wrong direction. I pulled out my phone to check the time. Maybe I'd gotten confused. Maybe I'd gotten on a different bus by mistake. But no, it was 7:23 a.m., 8 minutes since I'd boarded. The time was right, the bus was right, everything should be normal. Except we just passed the shopping center that I usually see 15 minutes into the commute, and we'd only been driving for 8 minutes. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of it. The numbers on the screen were clear, 7:23. I watched the digits, waiting for them to change to 7:24. They didn't. I watched for a full minute, counting in my head, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, all the way to 60. The time didn't change. It stayed frozen at 7:23. Then it shifted to 7:22. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked hard and looked again. 7:22. The time was going backwards. I watched it tick down. 7:21, then 7:20. Slowly, steadily, moving in reverse. I stood up too quickly, nearly dropping my phone. A few people glanced at me, but no one really looked concerned. I moved toward the front of the bus, grabbing onto poles to steady myself as we took another turn. "Excuse me?" I said to the driver. My voice came out higher than normal. "I think we're going the wrong way." He didn't turn around, just kept his eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2. "What's that?" he asked, voice flat. "The stops. They're backwards. We're passing them in reverse order." "We're on schedule," he said simply. "But..." I looked out the front windshield. We were approaching another intersection and I could see the street sign. Belmont. Belmont comes before Pine Grove. We were definitely going backwards through the route. "Please sit down," the driver said, not unkind but firm. I backed away from him and sank into the nearest seat, gripping my phone. 7:17 now. The time kept rolling backwards. My heart was pounding. This wasn't possible. None of this was possible. Out the window, the buildings were starting to look wrong. Not completely different, but slightly off. The corner store that should have a blue awning had a red one. The coffee shop I passed every morning had a different name on the sign. Small changes, details, but enough to make everything feel unfamiliar, distorted. The bus made another turn. I recognized the intersection. This was supposed to be my stop, where I got off every single day. But we were approaching it from the wrong direction, from the opposite side of the street. The bus slowed and stopped, and the driver called out, "Westfield Avenue." That was my stop, but we'd only been on the bus for what felt like 5 minutes. It usually takes 22. And the clock on my phone now showed 7:11, 4 minutes before I'd even gotten on. The doors hissed open. Nobody else moved to get off. I sat frozen in my seat, staring out on the street. It looked like Westfield, same intersection, same traffic light, but the buildings were wrong. The pharmacy on the corner had different signage. The tree that should have been on the right side of the street was on the left. Everything was mirrored, backwards. "Westfield Avenue," the driver called again, looking at me in the rearview mirror. My legs moved before I could think about it. I stood up and walked to the exit, each step feeling too slow, like I was wading through water. I stepped down onto the sidewalk and the doors closed immediately. The bus pulled away before I could turn around.
I stood there on the corner, breathing hard, trying to orient myself. The street was Westfield, I was sure of it, but everything felt wrong. The angles of the buildings, the way the light hit the pavement, even the air felt different, thicker somehow. I looked out at my phone. 7:15. The time had stopped moving backwards, but that meant I'd somehow arrived at my stop before I'd even gotten on. I started walking toward my apartment, and with every step, I noticed more small differences. A store that should have been a dry cleaner was now a nail salon. A mural on the side of a building showed different colors, different shapes. A tree I passed every day had white flowers instead of pink. When I reached my building, I stood outside for a long moment staring at it. It looked right. Same brick facade, same number on the door, but the window to my apartment, third floor, second from the left, had different curtains, blue instead of gray. I went inside anyway, took the stairs to my floor, put my key in the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Everything inside was mine. My furniture, my books, my photos on the wall, but they were arranged slightly differently. The couch was against the wrong wall. The bookshelf was taller. Pictures I'd never taken sat in frames next to ones I recognized. I backed out of the apartment and stood in the hallway, my heart hammering. I pulled out my phone to call someone, my sister, a friend, anyone. But when I looked at my contacts, some of the names were different. People I didn't recognize, numbers I'd never saved. I haven't taken the bus since then. I walk to work now, even though it takes 40 minutes. And every day when I pass that stop on Westfield, I see the 68 bus pull up right on schedule. People get on, people get off. Everything looks normal. But sometimes I stand there and watch the street signs as the bus passes, and I swear, just for a second, I see them in reverse order. Streets that come later appearing first, the route running backwards. And I wonder if anyone on that bus has noticed yet, if they're watching the clock on their phone tick down instead of up, if they'll get off at their stop and find their whole world shifted just slightly to the left. I wonder if they'll even realize they're not in the same place they started, or if they'll just keep riding, over and over, the route running backwards, taking them to somewhere that looks like home, but isn't. Not quite.
The driver said it twice. That's what got me first. Last stop, everyone off. Last stop, everyone off. His voice crackled through the speakers, flat and mechanical, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized years ago and had stopped thinking about. But saying it twice? That was new. In 3 years of taking the 89 bus to my night classes, I'd never heard him say it twice. I looked up from my textbook. The bus was empty. Completely empty. Just rows and rows of vacant seats stretching back into the fluorescent glare, that weird transit smell of industrial cleaner and old upholstery hanging in the air. Wait, when did everyone get off? I'd been studying, sure, lost in chemical equations and practice problems, but I couldn't have missed an entire busload of people leaving, could I? There'd been at least a dozen passengers when I got on. The lady with the twin strollers, that guy who always talked too loud on his phone, the teenager with the skateboard who'd sat across from me. I glanced out the window. We were still moving, rolling through dark streets I didn't quite recognize. The buildings outside looked industrial, abandoned maybe. Lots of chain-link fencing and empty parking lots bathed in that sickly orange glow from the sodium lights. Last stop, everyone off. There it was again, just once this time. I stood up, slinging my backpack over my shoulder. Maybe I'd zoned out harder than I thought. Maybe we'd hit traffic and I'd missed my stop completely. It happened. I'd just get off here, call a rideshare, and last stop, everyone off. The repetition made my skin prickle. I walked down the aisle toward the front, one hand on the seats to steady myself as the bus swayed. The driver sat perfectly still in his seat, hands at 10 and 2, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I could see the back of his head, the gray hair poking out from under his transit authority cap. "Excuse me?" I called out. "I think I missed my stop. Can you let me off at the next?" Last stop, everyone off.
He didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me at all, just sat there, driving, while his voice came through the speakers again. But his lips hadn't moved. I stopped walking, stood there in the aisle, suddenly very aware of how empty the bus was, how isolated. The hum of the engine seemed louder now, grinding and rhythmic, almost like breathing. Last stop, everyone off. Last stop, everyone off. 3 times now, fast, urgent. The voice was changing, I realized, getting higher, tighter, less human. I backed up a step. The driver still hadn't moved. I couldn't even tell if he was breathing. "Hey," I said louder this time. "Hey!" Nothing. The bus turned down a side street I definitely didn't recognize. The buildings here were worse. Broken windows, graffiti, that abandoned look that made you want to lock your doors. We shouldn't be here. This wasn't on the route. This wasn't anywhere near campus or my apartment or anything. I pulled out my phone. No signal. The battery was at 83%, but the bars were just gone. No service, not even emergency calls only, just blank. "Last stop, everyone off! Last stop, everyone off! Last stop, everyone off!" The words were blurring together now, faster and faster, and the voice had climbed into this awful registers that made my teeth hurt, like nails on a chalkboard filtered through dying speakers. I stumbled back toward my seat, thinking maybe I could just ride it out, wait until we got somewhere with lights and people and I could get off and never take this bus again. But as I moved, I realized something that made my stomach drop. My backpack was gone. My textbook was gone. The seat where I'd been sitting for the last 20 minutes, was empty, clean, like no one had sat there in hours. "Last stop, everyone off! Last stop, everyone off! Last stop, everyone off!" The voice was screaming now, this high-pitched mechanical shriek that barely sounded like words anymore. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head, vibrating in my skull. And then, the lights went out. Not all at once. They died in sequence, starting from the back of the bus and moving forward. Click, click, click. Each fluorescent tube going dark, and in the gaps between I could hear something else under the screaming announcement. A wet, shuffling sound, like something dragging itself down the aisle behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I ran toward the front, toward the driver, toward the only lights left. My sneakers squeaked on the rubber floor, and my breath came in ragged gasps, and behind me, the darkness was coming, eating the bus section by section. "Stop the bus!" I screamed. "Stop the—" The last light went out. Pure darkness. So complete I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The screaming announcement cut off mid-word, leaving this awful silence that was somehow worse. I froze, terrified to move, terrified to breathe too loud. The shuffling sound was close now, right behind me. I could hear it breathing, this wet, rattling wheeze that didn't sound like it came from anything that should be alive. And then I heard the driver's voice, his real voice, not through the speakers. Quiet, almost gentle. "You should have gotten off when I told you to." The bus stopped. The doors hissed open, and cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of oil and rust and something else, something old and wrong. Emergency lights flickered on, those dim red ones they have for evacuations, casting everything in this hellish glow. I could see where we were now, an old depot. Massive and decaying, the kind of place they mothball buses when they're too broken to fix. Rows and rows of dead vehicles stretched out into the shadows, some stripped down to bare frames, others just sitting there with shattered windows and peeling paint. No people, no sound except the distant drip of water on concrete. "Last stop, everyone off." He didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me at all, just sat there, driving, while his voice came through the speakers again. I ran, just bolted past him, through those open doors, out into the depot. My footsteps echoed crazy loud in the cavernous space. I didn't know where I was going, just away, anywhere away. Behind me, I heard the bus doors close, heard the engine start up again. I spun around just in time to see it pull away, rolling slowly back into the darkness between the dead buses. The number on the front, 89, flickered and changed, different numbers scrolling past like a slot machine, different routes, different destinations. It disappeared around a corner, and I was alone. I don't remember how I got out of there. I must have found an exit eventually, must have walked until I hit a real street with real lights. I remember the sun coming up. I remember a convenience store clerk calling me a cab because I looked messed up. I remember getting home and standing in the shower until the water ran cold. I reported it, called the transit authority and told them everything. They said the 89 bus completed its normal route that night. The driver, Carlos Mendez, been with the company for 18 years, clocked out at 11:47 p.m. like always. They checked the GPS logs, the security footage, nothing unusual. No detour, no abandoned depot. They suggested I'd fallen asleep and had a nightmare. But I know what I saw. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing I can't stop thinking about. When I got home that morning, I checked my backpack. My textbook was there. The page was bookmarked exactly where I'd been studying. And in the margin, in handwriting that wasn't quite mine, but almost, someone had written, "Last stop, everyone off." I don't take the bus anymore. I walk now, even when it's late, even when it's cold. Because sometimes when I pass a bus stop at night, I see the 89 pulling up. I see people getting on, tired people heading home after long shifts, students going to late classes. Normal people. And I want to run up to them, warn them, tell them to take a different route. But I don't. Because how do you explain that some buses don't go where they say they're going? That some drivers aren't drivers anymore? That some last stops aren't really the last stop? They're just the beginning of something worse.
I pressed the bell. I know I pressed it. I heard the chime, saw the red stop requested sign light up above the windshield. My stop was coming up in half a block, the Walgreens on the corner. The one I'd gotten off at every Thursday night for the past 8 months. Same time, same place, like clockwork. The bus didn't slow down. I waited, figuring maybe the driver hadn't seen the signal, or we were stopping at the light anyway. But we blew right through the intersection. The Walgreens slid past my window and we kept going. "Hey," I called out, loud enough to carry over the engine noise. "You missed my stop." The driver didn't respond. Middle-aged woman, hair pulled back tight, eyes fixed on the road. I'd seen her before. She usually smiled, did that little nod when you thanked her on your way out. Nice lady. She didn't look nice now. She didn't look anything. Just drove. I pressed the bell again and again. The chime kept dinging, that familiar two-tone sound, and the sign kept flashing "Stop requested" over and over. Other passengers glanced up, maybe 5 or 6 people scattered throughout the bus. A guy in scrubs, an elderly man with a cane. Nobody seemed particularly concerned yet. "Excuse me," I said louder, walking toward the front. "I need to get off. You missed my stop." Nothing. She stared straight ahead like I wasn't even there, hands steady on the wheel. We were picking up speed, I realized. The buildings outside were starting to blur past faster than they should on a residential street. "What the hell?" I muttered, reaching up to press the bell one more time. My finger jammed against it repeatedly. Ding, 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 ding. The sign flashed like a strobe light. The driver's jaw tightened. Just a small movement, but I saw it. She heard me. She was choosing to ignore me. A sick feeling settled into my gut. "Let me off this bus," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Right now! Pull over!" We hit another intersection. The light was yellow, turning red. She gunned it. We surged forward, and I had to grab the overhead rail to keep from falling. Behind me, someone gasped. The guy in scrubs stood up, moved toward the front. "Hey, what's going on? I need to get off too. My stop was back there." 2 of us now. The driver still didn't acknowledge either of us. I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd call 911, report a driver having some kind of episode. But my hands were shaking, and the bus was moving so fast now that the streetlights were just streaks of yellow against the dark. We had to be doing 50, maybe 60, in a 30 zone. "Someone call the police," the guy in scrubs said. He sounded scared, which made it worse because he looked like the kind of guy who didn't scare easy. "Something's wrong with her." The elderly man with the cane tried to stand, but sat back down hard as the bus swerved around a corner. "Miss, please, slow down." She pressed the accelerator harder. I stumbled back to a seat and gripped the rail with both hands. My phone showed full signal, but when I tried to call, the call wouldn't connect. Just a spinning wheel, then nothing. I tried again, same thing. I checked. The guy in scrubs was having the same problem, staring at his phone with growing panic. We were flying now, weaving between cars, running lights. I caught glimpses of other drivers' faces as we passed, mouths open in shock, horns blaring behind us. The engine was screaming, pushed way beyond what it was designed for. "Stop the bus!" I shouted, abandoning any pretense of calm. "Stop it right now!" The elderly man was praying, I realized, hands clasped around his cane, lips moving silently. A woman near the back was crying. And then I noticed where we were headed. The route was curving back around, looping through streets that seemed familiar. That shopping center, I'd seen it a few minutes ago. That gas station, that apartment complex. "She's going in circles," the guy in scrubs said, his voice hollow. "We're on a loop." He was right. I watched the same landmark slide past again. The Walgreens where I was supposed to get off, the intersection where this all started. Around and around, faster each time, like we were caught in some kind of nightmare carousel. I don't know how long it went on. Time stopped making sense. Could have been 30 minutes, could have been 2 hours. My hands were numb from gripping the seat, my body aching from the constant lurching and swaying. Other passengers had gone quiet, just holding on, faces blank with exhaustion and terror. The elderly man wasn't praying anymore. He just stared out the window with empty eyes, watching the same scenery repeat, repeat, repeat. I tried everything, banging on the driver's partition, screaming, begging, threatening. Nothing worked. She just drove, expression never changing, as we circled the same 5-mile route over and over and over. The other passengers stopped trying too. We just existed in this awful acceptance, riding an endless loop through the night, while the rest of the city went about its business outside our windows. Normal people driving normal places, walking home, living lives that made sense. My phone said it was 11:43 p.m., then 12:16 a.m., then 2:52 a.m. The battery was draining fast even though I wasn't using it, like the bus itself was somehow eating the power. At some point, I don't even remember when, the guy in scrubs just put his head in his hands and started laughing. Not funny laughter, the kind that comes when your brain can't process what's happening anymore. I understood. I felt it too. This creeping acceptance that maybe this is it. Maybe this is my life now. Riding this endless bus, watching the same streets blur past, my stop always just out of reach. And then the bus started slowing down. It was so gradual I almost didn't notice at first, but we were decelerating, the engine scream dropping to a whine, then a hum. The other passengers stirred, looking up with something like hope flickering in their exhausted faces. We pulled up to a stop, an actual stop with a shelter and a bench and everything. The brakes hissed, the doors opened. For a moment, nobody moved. We just sat there, afraid it was a trick, afraid the doors would snap shut the second we got close. The elderly man stood first, gripping his cane with shaking hands. He shuffled toward the exit, paused at the top of the stairs, then practically fell out onto the sidewalk. The woman who'd been crying scrambled after him, then the guy in scrubs, then everyone else, pushing and stumbling in their desperation to get out. I was last. I walked slowly down the aisle, watching the driver. She still hadn't moved, still hadn't blinked. I wanted to say something, anything, but what do you say to someone who just held you hostage for hours without ever acknowledging your existence? I stepped off the bus. The doors closed immediately behind me. The bus pulled away without hesitation, disappearing around the corner like nothing had happened. I looked around, trying to figure out where I was. The other passengers had already scattered, practically running in different directions. Smart,
I should have done the same. But I didn't recognize anything. The street signs were right there, perfectly visible under the streetlights. Maple and 7th, they said. Maple and 7th. There was no Maple and 7th in our city. I'd lived here for 12 years. I knew every major intersection, every neighborhood. Maple and 7th didn't exist. I pulled out my phone, 4% battery left, and opened my Maps app. The blue dot appeared, spinning, searching. When it finally locked on, I just stared. According to GPS, I was 73 miles from where I'd gotten on the bus, in a town I'd never heard of, in a county I couldn't even place. The app showed it would take me 16 hours to walk home. I looked back the way the bus had gone. Empty street, quiet, just regular suburban houses with their porch lights off, everyone asleep, everything normal. My battery died as I stood there, the screen going black in my hand. I was alone on a street that shouldn't exist, in a town I'd never been to, with no way to call anyone and no explanation for how I got here. The sky was starting to lighten in the east, dawn coming. I'd been on that bus for over 6 hours. I started walking. What else could I do? It took 3 days to get home. Hitched some rides, walked a lot, slept in a rest stop bathroom. When I finally made it back, everything was normal. My apartment was exactly how I'd left it. My boss was pissed I'd missed 3 days of work without calling. My phone bill was overdue. Life just went on, like those 6 hours on an endless loop had never happened. But I reported it anyway. Called the transit authority, told them everything. They pulled the records for that night. Bus 47, they said, running its normal route. The driver, Jennifer Patterson, spotless record, 15 years with the company, had clocked out at 10:17 p.m., right on schedule. GPS logs showed nothing unusual. Security footage showed me getting on at my usual stop at 9:53 p.m. It showed me getting off at my usual stop at 10:04 p.m. 11 minutes. That's how long I was on the bus. 11 minutes. The footage showed me walking away from the Walgreens, heading home just like I did every Thursday night. But I wasn't home. I was on that bus. And then I was 73 miles away, in a town I can't still find on any map, in a corner that doesn't show up in any GPS database. I don't take the bus anymore. Can't. The thought of getting on one makes my hands shake. I sold my car and bought a bike instead, even though it takes forever to get anywhere. Because here's what keeps me up at night. If I was only on that bus for 11 minutes, where was I for the next 6 hours? Where did that loop exist? And if the security footage shows me walking home, then who or what walked into my apartment that night while I was trapped on an endless route to nowhere?
The unspoken rule of public transportation is simple. If the bus is empty, you don't sit next to someone. You just don't. There are 40 empty seats, and you pick literally any of them except the one right next to the only other person on board. It's basic human decency, common sense. So when he sat down directly beside me, I knew something was off. It was a Tuesday night, around 11. I was heading home from a late shift at the bookstore, dead tired, just wanting to zone out for the 15-minute ride. The bus was completely empty when I got on. I took a seat near the middle, aisle side, and put my bag on the seat next to the window. Standard move. The bus pulled away from the stop, and I leaned my head back, closed my eyes for just a second. When I opened them, he was there. Sitting right next to me, right up against me, actually. Our shoulders were touching. He'd somehow moved my bag to the floor without me noticing, and now he was in that window seat, pressed against me like we were packed into a crowded subway car. Except the bus was still empty. Every other seat was available. I went rigid. My first instinct was to move, but something stopped me. Politeness, maybe. That stupid social conditioning that makes you worry about offending someone even when they're being completely inappropriate. So I just sat there, staring straight ahead, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't see him clearly in my peripheral vision, just dark clothes, a hood maybe. He wasn't moving, wasn't looking at his phone or out the window, just sitting there, too close, way too close. I decided I'd get up at the next stop, move to a different seat, make it obvious.
But then I'd feel stupid, right? What if he was just oblivious? What if I was overreacting? Except I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. The bus made its next stop, the doors opened, nobody got on or off, and he didn't move, didn't even shift his weight. We pulled away, and I realized I could hear him breathing, not loud but audible, steady, deep breaths like he was sleeping, but his posture was too rigid for sleep, too alert. My skin crawled. I pulled my arms in tight against my body, trying to create space where there wasn't any. I stared at the floor, at the seat in front of me, anywhere but at him. I still hadn't looked at his face. Some part of me didn't want to make it real. Another stop. Again, nobody got on. The doors closed, we started moving, and he was closer. I don't know how. I didn't see him move, but the pressure against my shoulder was stronger. He'd shifted somehow, leaned in, and now I could feel his arm against mine, his leg pressed against my leg. My heart started hammering. This wasn't my imagination. He was deliberately crowding me. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him in my peripheral vision. Still couldn't make out his face. The hood covered most of it, and the angle was wrong. But I could see his hands. They were resting on his knees, pale and perfectly still. Too still, like a mannequin's. "Excuse me," I said quietly. My voice shook. "Could you give me a little space, please?" He didn't respond, didn't acknowledge me at all, just kept breathing, in and out, steady, rhythmic. The sound was getting louder, or maybe I was just hyper-aware of it now. Each breath seemed to last forever. The next stop came. I didn't wait this time. I stood up quickly, too quickly, and moved 3 rows back, sat down heavily in a new seat, aisle side again, and finally looked at where I'd been sitting. He was still there, still in the window seat, but now he was facing forward, completely motionless, like he'd been frozen in place. I couldn't see his face, just the back of his hood. I felt a tiny bit of relief, space, distance. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and pretended to look at it, just trying to seem normal, like I wasn't terrified. The bus moved on. 2 more stops. I kept glancing up at him, and he never moved, didn't turn around, didn't get up, just sat there in that seat I'd abandoned. Then we hit another stop, and when the doors closed and I looked up again, my stomach dropped. He wasn't in that seat anymore. He was 3 rows back, in the seat directly beside me, exactly where he'd been before. I didn't see him move. I didn't hear him. 1 second he was up front, the next he was right next to me again, shoulder to shoulder, like he teleported. I made a sound, half gasp, half whimper, and scrambled up again, stumbling into the aisle. I moved all the way to the back this time, the very last row, and sat in the corner by the window, as far from him as possible. I was shaking now, actually shaking. I looked toward the front of the bus. He was still in the seat I'd just left, hadn't moved, didn't turn around, just sat there in that seat I'd abandoned. But then I could still hear the breathing. It was impossible. I was 30 feet away from him, but I could hear it clear as anything, right in my ear. Deep, steady breaths, in, out, in, out. I pressed myself against the window, pulling my knees up, wrapping my arms around them. I felt like a kid hiding from a monster. The bus made another turn. The lights flickered for just a second, and when they came back on, I saw him in the reflection of the window, sitting right beside me. I spun around, and there was no one there. The seat next to me was empty, but in the reflection, he was there, sitting close, too close, the hood still covering his face. And as I watched, frozen in terror, he turned his head in the reflection, slowly, toward me. I still couldn't make out his face, just darkness under that hood, but I felt him looking at me, staring. Then he leaned in closer. In the reflection, his head was inches from mine, and he whispered something. I heard it clearly, even though his reflection had no voice, even though the sound came from everywhere and nowhere at once. He whispered, my address, my exact address, the apartment number, everything. The destination I'd never said out loud, never typed into my phone, never told anyone on this bus. I squeezed my eyes shut. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. I kept them closed, counting in my head, trying to breathe, trying not to scream. The breathing sound was so loud now it drowned out everything else. The engine, the road, my own heartbeat. Just his breathing, surrounding me, suffocating me. The bus slowed, stopped. The doors hissed open. "Last stop," the driver called out. His voice sounded distant, muffled. I opened my eyes. The seat next to me was empty, completely empty. I looked at the window reflection. Nothing there either. I spun around, searching the whole bus, every row, every seat. I was alone. I got off that bus so fast I nearly fell down the steps. When I hit the sidewalk, I turned back to look. The bus was still there, idling, interior lights on. I could see every seat clearly through the windows, all empty. The driver looked at me through his mirror, just a normal guy, tired, ready to go home. He gave me a little wave, like everything was fine, like nothing had happened. The doors closed, the bus pulled away. I walked the 3 blocks to my apartment in the middle of the street, under the streetlights, looking over my shoulder every few seconds. When I got inside and locked the door, I checked every room, every closet, under the bed. I don't know what I was looking for. I just had to. Everything was normal, empty, safe. But that night, lying in bed, I heard it again. The breathing, steady, deep, right next to my ear. I turned on every light in my apartment and didn't sleep until the sun came up. I don't take the bus anymore. I walk. I pay for ride shares, whatever it costs, because I can't shake the feeling that if I got on a bus again, any bus, he'd be there, waiting, ready to sit too close, ready to whisper something I never told him, something I don't want to hear.
I never paid attention to the streetlights before. You don't, right? They're just there, part of the background. You assume they work, and when they don't, you barely notice. But that night, I noticed. And now I can't stop noticing. It was around midnight. I'd stayed late at the library studying for finals, lost track of time, and ended up catching the last bus home. The city was dead at that hour. Empty sidewalks, closed shops, nothing moving except the occasional car. Just me and the bus cutting through the silence. I was the only passenger. The driver barely looked at me when I got on. I sat near the back and stared out the window, too tired to look at my phone. Just watching the city slide past in that numb, half-awake way you do when it's late and you're exhausted. We passed under a streetlight, and it went out. I didn't think much of it at first. Bulbs burn out. It happens. But then we passed the next one, and it flickered off just as we went under it. Then the next one. And the next. I sat up straighter, watching more carefully now. Every single streetlight we passed blinked out the moment the bus got close. Not before, not after. Right as we passed underneath. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Behind us, the streets went dark. I turned in my seat and looked back through the rear window. Every light we'd passed was out. The road behind us was completely black, like we were leaving a trail of darkness in our wake. My stomach tightened. I looked ahead. The street in front of us was still lit, streetlights glowing in a line stretching into the distance. But as we approached each one, it died. Click, dark, click, dark. One after another, like dominoes falling. "Excuse me," I called to the driver. My voice sounded too loud in the empty bus. "Are you seeing this?" He didn't respond, didn't even glance in the mirror. Just kept driving, hands steady on the wheel. I stood up and moved closer to the front, gripping the poles. "The lights! They're going out!" "Sit down, please," he said flatly. "But the streetlights!" "Sit down." There was something in his voice. Not anger, something else. Fear, maybe. Or resignation. Like he knew what was happening and didn't want to talk about it. I backed away slowly and sank into a seat closer to the middle. My heart was pounding now. I looked out the window again, watching the lights ahead flicker and die as we approached each one. The darkness behind us was spreading. I couldn't see anything back there anymore. No buildings, no signs, no other cars. Just black. The bus made a turn onto a wider street. More streetlights here.
a whole avenue of them stretching ahead, bright and yellow and normal. For a second, I felt relief. Maybe it had just been that one street. But as we drove forward, they started dying again. One by one, in perfect sequence, the lights went out. And this time I noticed something else. It wasn't just the street lights. The lights in the buildings were going out too. Windows that had been glowing went dark as we passed. Storefronts, apartment buildings, everything. The bus was pulling darkness behind it like a curtain. I pressed my face against the window, looking up at the buildings. I saw a light on a third-floor apartment. As we got closer, it flickered, then went out. The whole window went black. I saw another light 2 buildings down. Same thing. It died the moment we passed. "What's happening?" I said louder now. "What's going on?" The driver didn't answer, but I saw his hands tighten on the wheel, saw his shoulders tense. We were moving through a tunnel of darkness now. The only light came from the bus itself, the interior lights and the headlights cutting through the black. Ahead of us, I could see maybe 50 feet. Beyond that, nothing. The streetlights we hadn't reached yet were still visible in the distance, but they were going out faster now, multiple lights at a time. The darkness was accelerating. I pulled out my phone to call someone, 911, my roommate, anyone. But my screen was flickering. The battery indicator showed full charge, but the display kept cutting out. The flashlight app wouldn't turn on. It was like the darkness was affecting the phone, too. The bus made another turn, and I realized we weren't on my route anymore. This wasn't the way to my stop. We were heading into the warehouse district, where there were fewer buildings, fewer lights, more empty space. "This isn't right," I said again, standing up. "This isn't the route. Where are we going?" The driver still didn't respond. I walked up to the partition, right behind his seat. "Hey, I'm talking to you. Where are you taking me?" He finally looked at me in the mirror. His eyes were wide, terrified. "I don't know," he whispered. "What do you mean, you don't know? You're driving the bus." "I'm not choosing where it goes." His voice cracked. "It's taking us somewhere." Cold washed over me. "Stop the bus. Let me off." "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" He gestured at the controls. "I've tried. It won't stop. The brakes don't work. Nothing works." I stared at him, my mind refusing to process what he was saying. This was a bus, a regular city bus. It couldn't just decide where to go. That wasn't possible. But the lights kept going out, and the darkness kept spreading, and we kept moving forward into nothing. The last of the city streetlights died behind us. Now there was only the road ahead, illuminated by the headlights, and pure black on either side. No buildings anymore, no signs, no other cars. Just empty road and darkness pressing in from all sides. Then, the headlights started to dim. "No, no, no," the driver whispered. The headlights flickered, faded. The road became harder to see. And then, one by one, the interior lights of the bus started going out too. The light above my head died first, then the ones behind me. The darkness was inside the bus now, crawling towards us from the back. I could hear my own breathing, fast and panicked. Could hear the driver muttering something under his breath, a prayer maybe. The last few interior lights flickered. I grabbed onto the pole next to me, bracing myself. The darkness was right behind me now. I could feel it. Cold, heavy, like it had weight. And then, all the lights went out. Complete darkness. Absolute. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, couldn't see the driver, couldn't see anything. But I could feel the bus still moving, could feel it accelerating. "Driver!" I called out. My voice sounded muffled, distant. No response. Driver! Nothing. Just the sound of the engine and my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. We drove through the darkness for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. I stood frozen in the aisle, too terrified to move, feeling like at any moment the floor would drop out from under me, or something would reach out from the black and grab me. And then, I felt the bus slow down. We came to a stop. The engine idled, and in that moment of stillness, I heard the doors hiss open. I couldn't see them, couldn't see anything, but I felt the cold air rush in, and I knew the exit was open. I didn't think, I just moved, stumbled forward in the dark, hands out, feeling for the poles, the seats, anything. My shin hit something hard and I nearly fell, but I kept going, kept moving toward where I thought the door was. My foot hit the step. I reached out and felt the opening, and I jumped. I hit pavement hard, rolled, scraped my hands. But I was off the bus. I was out. Behind me, I heard the doors close, heard the engine rev, and then the sound of the bus pulling away, fading into the distance, until there was nothing. I lay on the ground in total darkness, gasping, waiting for my eyes to adjust. But there was nothing to adjust to. No stars, no moon, no ambient light from anywhere. Just black. Then, slowly, a light turned on. A street light, right above me. It flickered once, twice, then glowed steady and bright. And then another light came on, and another. In a wave spreading outwards from where I lay, the lights returned. Street lights, building lights, everything. The darkness rolled back like a retreating tide. Within seconds, the whole street was lit again, normal, like nothing had happened. I sat up, looking around. I was in the middle of downtown, 2 blocks from my apartment, my actual stop, the place I'd been trying to get to all along. There was no sign of the bus. I walked home in a daze, every streetlight I passed burning bright and steady. When I got to my building, I stood outside for a long time, just looking at the lights. All of them working, all of them normal. The rain started just as I got on the bus, that heavy, drumming kind that turns the windows into moving curtains of water and makes everything outside blur into smears of light. I shook off my jacket and moved toward the back, dripping on the floor, apologizing to nobody in particular. There were maybe 6 other people scattered throughout, late-night crowd, people who work weird hours or don't have anywhere better to be at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I slid into a window seat about halfway back and watched the rain streak across the glass. That's when I noticed her. She was sitting across the aisle from me, 1 row up. Young woman, maybe mid-20s, wearing a gray coat that looked expensive, dark hair pulled back. She was staring straight ahead, hands folded in her lap, perfectly still. Something about her posture caught my attention. Too rigid, too formal, like she was posing for a photograph. The bus pulled away from the curb, and the interior lights reflected off the wet windows, turning them into dark mirrors. I could see myself pretty clearly. Tired face, damp hair, the guy behind me scrolling on his phone. I could see the overhead lights, the advertisements running along the ceiling, the empty seats. But I couldn't see her. I blinked, looked directly at the woman, then back at the window. She was right there, solid and real, sitting perfectly still in her expensive gray coat. But in the window's reflection, nothing, just an empty seat where she should have been. Must be the angle, I thought, the way the light's hitting a glass. I shifted in my seat, trying to get a better view. The reflection shifted with me. I could see everything else perfectly. The woman's seat, the pole beside it, the floor beneath it. Just not her. A cold feeling crept up my spine. I looked around to see if anyone else had noticed, but the other passengers were absorbed in their phones or staring blankly ahead with that end-of-day exhaustion.
Nobody was paying attention. I glanced at the woman again. She hadn't moved, hadn't even shifted her weight, just sat there, hands folded, staring at the back of the seat in front of her. The bus made a stop. 2 people got off, 1 got on. The new passenger, a kid in a fast food uniform, walked right past the woman without looking at her. Didn't do that polite acknowledgement thing people do when they pass someone. Just walked by like she wasn't there. But she was there. I could see her. I pulled out my phone and pretended to check something, angling the dark screen to use it as a mirror. Held it up, trying to be subtle. In the faint reflection on the black glass, I could see the seats behind me, the window, the rainy night beyond. No woman in the gray coat. My hands started to shake. I lowered the phone, swallowed hard. This was insane. People don't just not have reflections. That's not a real thing. There had to be an explanation, some optical illusion caused by the rain and the lights, and she turned her head. Slowly, deliberately, she turned and looked directly at me. Her eyes were dark, not just brown dark, empty dark, like looking into wells that went down forever. And she was smiling, this small, knowing smile that made every hair on my body stand up. I couldn't look away, wanted to, desperately wanted to, but I was frozen. She held my gaze for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then, just as slowly, she turned back to face forward. I needed to get off this bus. I reached up to press the stop button, but my hand wouldn't move. My whole body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was underwater. I managed to tear my eyes away from her and look around frantically. The other passengers, why weren't they reacting? Couldn't they see what I was seeing? The guy behind me was still scrolling through his phone. A woman near the front was reading a paperback. The kid in the fast food uniform had his headphones in, eyes closed. Normal. Everything was normal for them. I forced myself to look at the windows again, at the reflections, tested them methodically this time, fighting the panic. I could see the guy behind me. There he was, reflected in the glass, thumb moving over his screen. The woman reading, yep, there she was too, turning a page. The empty seat across from me where the woman in gray sat. Nothing, just empty space in the reflection. The bus slowed for another stop. The doors hissed open. This was my chance. I just needed to stand up, walk to the front, get off. Simple. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't respond. It was like my body had disconnected from my brain, like someone had cut the wires. The doors closed. We pulled away. Nobody had gotten on or off. "No!" I whispered, barely a sound, but I heard it. So did she. The woman's head tilted slightly, like a bird hearing something interesting. Then she stood up. She moved smoothly, gracefully, turned into the aisle and just stood there, facing me now. That same small smile on her face, those same impossible dark eyes. I couldn't look away. Wanted to, desperately wanted to, but I was frozen. She held my gaze for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then, just as slowly, she turned back to face forward. I needed to get off this bus. I reached up to press the stop button, but my hand wouldn't move. My whole body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was underwater. I managed to tear my eyes away from her and look around frantically. The other passengers, why weren't they reacting? Couldn't they see what I was seeing? The guy behind me was still scrolling through his phone. A woman near the front was reading a paperback. The kid in the fast food uniform had his headphones in, eyes closed. Normal. Everything was normal for them. I forced myself to look at the windows again, at the reflections, tested them methodically this time, fighting the panic. I could see the guy behind me. There he was, reflected in the glass, thumb moving over a screen. The woman reading, yep, there she was too, turning a page. The empty seat across from me where the woman in gray sat. Nothing, just empty space in the reflection. The bus slowed for another stop. The doors hissed open. This was my chance. I just needed to stand up, walk to the front, get off. Simple. But I couldn't.
My legs wouldn't respond. It was like my body had disconnected from my brain, like someone had cut the wires. The doors closed. We pulled away. Nobody had gotten on or off. "No!" I whispered, barely a sound, but I heard it. So did she. The woman's head tilted slightly, like a bird hearing something interesting. Then she stood up. She moved smoothly, gracefully, turned into the aisle and just stood there, facing me now. That same small smile on her face, those same impossible dark eyes. I couldn't look away. Wanted to, desperately wanted to, but I was frozen. She held my gaze for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then, just as slowly, she turned back to face forward. I needed to get off this bus. I reached up to press the stop button, but my hand wouldn't move. My whole body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was underwater. I managed to tear my eyes away from her and look around frantically. The other passengers, why weren't they reacting? Couldn't they see what I was seeing? The guy behind me was still scrolling through his phone. A woman near the front was reading a paperback. The kid in the fast food uniform had his headphones in, eyes closed. Normal. Everything was normal for them. I forced myself to look at the windows again, at the reflections, tested them methodically this time, fighting the panic. I could see the guy behind me. There he was, reflected in the glass, thumb moving over a screen. The woman reading, yep, there she was too, turning a page. The empty seat, across from me, where the woman in gray sat. Nothing, just empty space in the reflection. The bus slowed for another stop. The doors hissed open. This was my chance. I just needed to stand up, walk to the front, get off. Simple. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't respond. It was like my body had disconnected from my brain, like someone had cut the wires. The doors closed. We pulled away. Nobody had gotten on or off. "No!" I whispered, barely a sound, but I heard it. So did she. The woman's head tilted slightly, like a bird hearing something interesting. Then she stood up. She moved smoothly, gracefully, turned into the aisle and just stood there, facing me now. That same small smile on her face, those same impossible dark eyes. I couldn't look away. Wanted to, desperately wanted to, but I was frozen. She held my gaze for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then, just as slowly, she turned back to face forward. I needed to get off this bus. I reached up to press the stop button, but my hand wouldn't move. My whole body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was underwater. I managed to tear my eyes away from her and look around frantically. The other passengers, why weren't they reacting? Couldn't they see what I was seeing? The guy behind me was still scrolling through his phone. A woman near the front was reading a paperback. The kid in the fast food uniform had his headphones in, eyes closed. Normal. Everything was normal for them. I forced myself to look at the windows again, at the reflections, tested them methodically this time, fighting the panic. I could see the guy behind me. There he was, reflected in the glass, thumb moving over a screen. The woman reading, yep, there she was too. I bought the card that morning. Brand new, 30-day unlimited pass, activated it at the machine myself. Watched the screen confirm it. Valid from 7:42 a.m., expires midnight, 30 days from activation. Stuck it in my wallet and headed to the platform. The bus pulled up at 8:15. I was running late for work, stressed about a meeting, not really paying attention. Just pulled out my card and tapped it against the reader like I'd done 1,000 times before. The machine beeped. Red light. Insufficient funds, the display read. I stared at it. That's not right. I just loaded this thing an hour ago. The driver, a younger woman with tired eyes, barely looked up. Try again. I tapped it again. Same red light. Same message. It's a 30-day pass, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. I literally just bought it. She sighed and waved me through. Just go. I don't have time for this.
I muttered a thanks and found a seat, already pulling up the transit app on my phone to check my account. Maybe there'd been some glitch, a processing delay. These things happened. But when the app loaded, my account looked fine. Active 30-day pass, valid through December 2nd, balance showing unlimited rides. So why had the card read as insufficient funds? I pulled it out of my wallet, examined it. Just a normal fare card, blue and white, the Transit Authority logo, a string of numbers along the bottom. Nothing unusual. I was about to put it away when I noticed something at the top of the screen. Last used 8:15 a.m., Route 47 northbound. I frowned. That was now. This bus. But the timestamp said I used it at 8:15 and it was only 8:17 now. The machine had rejected it, so technically I hadn't used it at all. The driver had just waved me through. Weird. Must be some kind of system lag. I pocketed the card and tried to focus on my emails, but something nagged at me. After a few minutes, I pulled the card out again and held it up to scan the numbers on the back with the transit app. Maybe checking the full trip history would explain the error. The app took a moment to load, then the screen filled with a list of trips. 8:15 a.m., Route 47 northbound, Maple Station to downtown. 7:52 a.m., Route 12 eastbound, Oak Street to Maple Station. 7:38 a.m., Route 8 southbound, home to Oak Street. My mouth dropped. I hadn't taken Route 12 or Route 8. I'd walked straight from my apartment to Maple Station, then gotten on this bus. That was it. One trip, not three. But those locations, Oak Street was 2 blocks from my apartment. Maple Station was where I'd bought the card, and I was on Route 47 heading downtown right now. The stops were right, the timing was right, but the trips were wrong. I scrolled down. More entries appeared, and my stomach dropped. 6:45 p.m. previous day, Route 47 southbound, downtown to Maple Station. 7:32 p.m., Route 18 westbound, work to downtown. Yesterday's commute home, except I hadn't used this card yesterday. I hadn't even owned this card yesterday. I'd bought it this morning. My hands started shaking. I kept scrolling. Days of trips, weeks. Every route I'd taken in the last month was listed, timestamps and locations perfectly accurate. My commute to work, the grocery store on Saturday, the doctor's appointment 2 weeks ago, that concert downtown. Every single trip I'd made was there, logged on a card that shouldn't have any history at all. "Excuse me," I said to the woman across from me. "Can you see this?" I held up my phone, showing her the trip history. She glanced at it, shrugged. "Looks like a transit card, so?" "But look at the dates. This card is brand new. I just bought it today. How can it have trips from last week?" She looked more carefully, and I watched her expression shift from annoyance to confusion. That's weird. System glitch probably. You should report it." But her voice was uncertain. She moved to a different seat. The bus made a stop. A few people got off, a few got on. I sat frozen, staring at my phone, at this impossible history. I went back to the top of the list, to the most recent entries. 8:15 a.m., Route 47 northbound, Maple Station to downtown. Then, right above it, 8:47 a.m., Route 47 northbound, downtown to Central Plaza. My blood turned to ice. 8:47 a.m. That was 30 minutes from now, a trip I hadn't taken yet. The card was showing future trips. I scrolled down with trembling fingers. More future trips appeared, filling the screen. 12:30 p.m., Route 9 westbound, Central Plaza to River District. 12:45 p.m., River District Station, platform wait, 15 minutes. 1 p.m., Route 22 southbound, River District to Warehouse Row.
The timestamps kept going. My entire day mapped out in transit routes I hadn't planned to make, places I had no reason to go. Warehouse Row? I'd never even been to that part of the city. It was all abandoned buildings and industrial lots. I kept scrolling, faster now, watching my day unfold in transit routes. 3 p.m., 5:30 p.m., 7:45 p.m. The list went on, stop after stop, route after route, like someone had planned out every movement I would make. And then I reached the end. 11:47 p.m., Route 47 northbound, to... The destination was blank, just a dash. But there was a timestamp, 11:59 p.m. And below it, in red text, card expires midnight. Not card expires December 2nd like it should have said, just card expires midnight. Tonight. I stood up, my legs unsteady. I need to get off! I need to get off this bus right now! The driver must have heard my panic in my voice, so she pulled over at the next stop, even though I hadn't pressed the button. The doors opened, and I stumbled out onto the sidewalk, gulping air like I'd been underwater. My phone buzzed. A notification from the transit app. Trip complete, Route 47 northbound, Maple Station to downtown. But I hadn't ridden to downtown. I'd gotten off early. The app was wrong. Except I looked around, really looked, and my heart sank. These weren't the streets near my office. I was downtown, the financial district, exactly where the card said I'd be. How long had I been on that bus? It felt like 5 minutes, but according to my phone, it's 8:46, almost 30 minutes. Almost time for my next trip, the one scheduled for 8:47 a.m. I heard the bus before I saw it. Route 47, same number, pulling up to the stop 20 feet away. The doors opened. No, I whispered. No, I'm not getting on. But my legs were already moving. I tried to stop, to turn around, to run anywhere else. My body wasn't listening. It was walking toward the bus, pulling the fare card out of my pocket, tapping it against the reader. Green light. Card accepted. I sat down in the same seat as before. The doors closed. We pulled away. I was screaming inside my head, but no sound came out. My body was calm, hands folded in my lap, like I was perfectly fine with this, like this was exactly what I wanted to do. The transit app updated. Current trip, Route 47 northbound, downtown to Central Plaza. We passed through downtown, heading north. Other passengers got on and off, living their normal lives, while I sat paralyzed, watching the stops roll by. Each one bringing me closer to Central Plaza, closer to the next scheduled trip, closer to Warehouse Row and that blank destination at 11:59 p.m. My phone was still in my hand. I managed to move my thumb, scrolling desperately through the trip history, looking for what? An answer? An escape route? The future trips were more detailed now. I could see walking directions between stops, wait times, even the specific buses I'd board, complete with bus numbers and driver names. Everything planned out, everything predetermined. At 6 p.m., I checked the card again. The future trips were still there, still accurate, still pulling me along like I was tied to rails I couldn't see. But now there was something else. A message at the bottom of the screen in that same red text. Deviation from scheduled route not permitted. I hadn't tried to deviate. I couldn't. My body wouldn't let me. The sun set. The buses kept running. I transferred from route to route, the city growing darker and emptier around me. By 11 p.m., I was in parts of town I'd never even heard of in crime reports. Abandoned lots, boarded-up buildings, streets where even the streetlights seemed to give up. 11.
The depot closed at midnight. I knew because I was there, watching through the fence as they pulled the last buses in, killed the lights, locked the gates. I'd missed the 11:45. My own fault, fell asleep on my friend's couch, and figured I'd just wait it out, catch the first morning route at 5 a.m. So I sat on the bench across the street, scrolling through my phone, occasionally glancing up at the dark depot. 4 hours. Not ideal, but I'd pulled worse all-nighters. At 12:47 a.m., I heard it. The diesel rumble of a bus engine, getting closer. I looked up. Headlights were coming down the street, and my heart actually jumped. Maybe they were running a late route I didn't know about. Maybe I'd get home tonight after all. The bus pulled up to the stop. Number 23, my route, the one that should have stopped running 47 minutes ago. The doors hissed open. I should have questioned it, should have wondered why a bus was running after the depot closed, why the electronic display was blank, why I couldn't see the driver clearly through the glare of the interior lights. But I was tired and cold, and I just wanted to go home. I climbed aboard. "Hey, thanks for stopping," I said. "I thought I was stuck out here until morning." The driver didn't respond, didn't even look at me. I couldn't make out their face. Shadows and the angle of the overhead light conspired to hide their features. Just a silhouette in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel. I tapped my phone against the fare reader. It didn't beep, didn't light up at all. Dead, maybe. "Sorry, I think the machine's—" "Sit down." The voice was flat, barely audible over the engine. I couldn't tell if it was male or female. "Okay, yeah, sorry." I moved toward the back. The bus was empty except for me. Every seat vacant, the overhead lights flickering slightly, casting strange shadows. Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint what. Just this creeping unease settling into my chest. The doors closed and we pulled away from the curb. I sat about halfway back by a window and tried to shake the weird feeling. It's just a bus. You've taken this route 100 times. Everything's fine. But we weren't following the normal route. We should have turned left at the next intersection. We went straight. "Excuse me," I called out. "I think you missed the turn." No response. The driver just kept going, straight down streets that got darker and emptier the farther we went. I pulled out my phone to check the route map, and my stomach dropped. No signal, not even a little, and the battery was draining fast. 67%, 58%, 43%, dropping right before my eyes. Hey, seriously, where are we going? Nothing. The driver didn't move, didn't acknowledge me at all. I stood up, thinking I'd just get off at the next stop, walk home from wherever we ended up. But then I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me, in the back of the bus. I spun around. The back section was empty, just vacant seats and that emergency exit door. But I'd heard footsteps. I knew I had. The bus slowed, not stopping, just slowing, to about 20 miles per hour. And then the back doors opened. Not the front doors, the back ones. The ones that are supposed to stay closed unless someone presses the exit button from inside. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain, even though it wasn't raining. I backed away from the open doors, my heart hammering. And then someone got on. Through the back doors, while the bus was still moving. A passenger. That's all I could process at first. Just another passenger, boarding through the back like they'd been waiting at a stop I hadn't seen. They were wearing dark clothes, a long coat maybe, or a jacket. I couldn't make out details in the dim light. The doors closed behind them. The passenger didn't sit down, just stood there in the aisle, maybe 10 feet from me, perfectly still despite the swaying of the bus. "Hey," I said, my voice cracking, how did you—" They didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there facing my direction, though I couldn't still make out their face. The overhead lights seemed to fail right where they were standing, creating this pocket of shadow that moved with them. The bus picked up speed again. We were really moving now. Way too fast for a city street, buildings blurred past the windows. I wanted to call out to the driver, to demand they stop the bus, but something told me the driver wouldn't help, wouldn't even acknowledge that anything was wrong. The passenger took a step forward, then another.
Slow, deliberate steps, perfectly balanced despite the movement of the bus. They were coming toward me. "Stay back," I said, holding my hands. "Just stay there." Another step, closer now, 6 feet away. I could almost see their face, but it was like my eyes couldn't focus on it. Every time I tried to look directly at them, the features seemed to slip away, replaced by shadow or the glare of lights, or just nothing. 5 feet, 4. They stopped right beside me, just stood there in the aisle, close enough that I should have been able to hear them breathing, but there was no sound except the engine and the rush of air past the windows. I pressed myself against the window, trying to put distance between us, but there was nowhere to go. They were right there, standing motionless, this presence of wrong that made my skin crawl. I could smell something now. Not unpleasant exactly, but strange, like old paper, like dust, like something that had been shut away for a long time. "What do you want?" I whispered. The passenger's head tilted slightly, like they were considering the question or listening to something I couldn't hear. Then they turned away from me, facing the front of the bus, facing the driver who still hadn't moved, hadn't acknowledged any of this. We were really flying now, had to be doing 60, maybe 70, way too fast. The streetlights were just streaks of yellow. I couldn't tell where we were anymore. Nothing outside looked familiar. The passenger raised one arm, pointing at something ahead, something I couldn't see. And then they walked forward. Not toward the front doors, toward the windshield, toward the driver. "Wait," I heard myself say. "Don't." They passed the driver without pausing, just walked right past the seat, and I realized with horror that they were heading straight for the windshield. They were going to walk through the glass and out into... The bus swerved hard. I was thrown against the seats, barely caught myself. When I looked up, the passenger was at the front door now. Somehow, they'd moved from the windshield to the door without walking, without any transition. The doors opened. At 70 miles per hour. On a highway now. I could see it through the windshield. We were on a highway I didn't recognize. No other cars in sight. The passenger stepped off. Just stepped calmly out of the bus, into traffic, into the road rushing by at lethal speed. I lurched forward screaming, expecting to see them crushed, mangled, thrown. But they just vanished. 1 second stepping through the door, the next second gone. Not falling, not tumbling, just gone, like they'd stepped through a doorway into somewhere else. The doors closed. The bus slowed, rapidly, smoothly. We pulled off onto an exit ramp, and suddenly we were back in the city. Normal streets, normal lights, like the highway never happened. The driver's voice crackled over the speakers. "End of route, last stop." We rolled to a stop at a familiar intersection, 3 blocks from my apartment. The front doors opened. I didn't wait, just ran down the aisle and threw myself out onto the sidewalk, my legs nearly giving out when I hit solid ground. The bus pulled away immediately, its taillights disappearing around a corner. I stood there, gasping, shaking, trying to process what just happened. Pulled out my phone, battery at 3%, but I had signal again. I checked the time. 1:14 a.m. I'd been on that bus for 27 minutes. 27 minutes for a route that should take 45. I walked home, checking my shoulder every few steps, kept expecting to see that figure in the dark coat standing behind me, or that bus coming back around the corner. But the streets were empty, normal, just a cold October night in the city. When I got home, I couldn't sleep, kept replaying it in my head. The passenger boarding through the back doors, standing beside me, that smell of old paper and dust, the way they'd stepped off into traffic and just vanished. The next morning, I called the transit authority, wanted to report what happened, or at least find out if Route 23 had actually been running after midnight. The woman on the phone was polite but confused. "Sir, all our buses are in the depot by 12:15 a.m. Nothing runs between midnight and 5. "I know, but I was on a bus last night, number 23, around 1:47. A pause, keyboard clicking. According to our GPS logs, all Route 23 buses were parked and powered down by 12:11 last night. Not a single one left the depot. That's impossible. I was on one. I rode it home. More clicking. A longer pause. Sir, can I ask, did you get on at a regular stop? Yeah, the one across from the depot on Harrison. And did anyone else get on while you were riding? The way she asked it, careful, like she was afraid of the answer, made my blood run cold. Yes, I said slowly. Someone got on through the back doors while we were moving. The line went quiet. Then, what time did you say this was? 12:47. And the passenger who got on, did they get off before your stop? Yes, they just stepped off into traffic and disappeared.
The kid was crying when I got on the bus. Not loud, attention-seeking crying, the quiet kind that's somehow worse. Those little hitching breaths, tears running down his face while he stared out the window. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, wearing a blue jacket that looked too big for him and clutching a Power Rangers backpack to his chest. I sat a few rows behind him. It was just the 3 of us on the 6:15 a.m. route. Me, the kid, and the driver, this heavy-set guy named Marcus, who I'd seen 100 times before. Usually chatty, always had some story about his grandkids. But this morning, he looked tense, kept glancing in the rearview mirror at the crying child. We pulled up to Riverside and 5th. A few people got on. A nurse still in her scrubs, a construction worker with a lunch pail. The bus pulled away. "This is my stop," the kid said suddenly. His voice was small, thick with tears. "This is my stop." Marcus's jaw tightened. "No, it's not, son. Your stop was back on Maple Street. I told you." "This is my stop," the kid repeated. Same inflection, same tone exactly. I frowned, leaning forward slightly. Something felt off about the way he'd said it, too precise, like he was reciting a line he'd memorized. "Kid, I've been driving this route for 8 years, Marcus said, his voice strained. "You got on at Maple and 3rd. You missed your stop by 3 blocks. I need you to get off at the next stop and walk back, okay?" The kid didn't respond, just kept crying those quiet tears, staring out the window. We made 2 more stops. The bus was filling up now, morning commuters heading downtown. Nobody sat near the kid. Not deliberately avoiding him exactly, but that unconscious thing people do where they sense something's wrong and keep their distance without knowing why. "Sweetheart," the nurse said, sliding into the seat across from the boy. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The kid turned to look at her. His face was blotchy from crying, his eyes red-rimmed. But when he spoke, his voice was completely flat. "This is my stop." The nurse blinked. "Which stop, honey? Where do you need to go?" "This is my stop. This is my stop." "Okay, but which? This is my stop. This is my stop." Same words, same rhythm, faster now. The nurse pulled back, something uncomfortable flickering across her face. She stood up and moved to a different seat without another word. My skin was crawling. The kid had gone back to staring out the window, tears still streaming, but his mouth kept moving. I could see it even from behind, his lips forming the same 4 words over and over, silently now. "Marcus?" I called out, keeping my voice low. "Maybe we should call someone, police or—" "You think I haven't thought of that?" shot Marcus. "Kid got on my bus 45 minutes ago, had the exact fare, dropped it right in the box, said no word. Then we passed Maple Street and he started crying, said he missed his stop. I asked him where he lived, he wouldn't answer, just kept crying." We pulled up to another stop. Marcus opened the doors. "Son, this is where you need to get off. I'm calling the authorities." The kid didn't move. "Come on now, I can't have you riding around all day." Nothing. Just those silent lips moving. "This is my stop. This is my stop. This is my stop." Marcus closed the doors, his hands shaking slightly on the wheel. He reached for his radio, but the kid spoke again before he could. "This is my stop." And then I noticed it, the thing that made my stomach drop.
The kid hadn't blinked, not once since I'd gotten on the bus. His eyes were open, fixed on the window, tears running down his cheeks, but his eyelids hadn't moved, just stayed open, unblinking, while he stared and cried and repeated those same 4 words. "Jesus," someone whispered behind me. Others had noticed too. The whole bus had gone quiet, everyone watching this small boy who wouldn't blink, wouldn't stop crying, wouldn't get off the bus. "Marcus, pull over, right now. Something's really wrong." The urgency in my voice must have gotten through because he yanked the bus to the curb. He pulled the brake, stood up, and walked back to the kid. "All right, son, end of the line. Come on." He reached out to touch the kid's shoulder. The boy's head snapped around, fast, too fast. That's what I remember most, how unnaturally quick that movement was. And when he looked up at Marcus, his eyes were completely dry. No tears, no redness, like he'd never been crying at all. "This is my stop," he said, and smiled. Marcus jerked his hand back like he'd been burned. "What the? This is my stop. This is my stop. This is my stop." The words were pouring out now, faster and faster, his mouth barely able to keep up. But his expression never changed, just that small smile, those unblinking eyes locked on Marcus's face. Other passengers were standing now, moving towards the front, away from the kid. Someone was on their phone. The construction worker had his hand on the back exit door, ready to bolt. The kid stood up, still smiling, still not blinking. His backpack fell to the floor with a hollow thump that seemed way too loud in the shocked silence. He took a step into the aisle. "Stay back," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "Everyone stay back." The kid took another step, then another, walking towards the front of the bus with this weird gliding movement, like his feet weren't quite touching the floor. And all the while, his mouth was moving, the words blurring together into this horrible monotone stream. He was 5 feet from Marcus, 4 feet, 3 feet. And then he just stopped, mid-word. His mouth was still open, frozen on "my," but no sound came out. He stood there in the aisle, perfectly still, like someone had pressed pause on a video. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. We all just stared at this frozen child, waiting for something, anything. The kid's image flickered, just for a second, like a bad TV signal. Then it happened again. Flicker, flicker. His outline was getting fuzzy, indistinct. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. The boy disappeared. Not faded away, not walked off. 1 second he was there, frozen in the aisle, mouth open. The next second, there was just empty space. The backpack was gone too. The wet spots on the window where he'd been crying, gone. It was like he'd never been there at all. Marcus stumbled back to his seat, grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "Dispatch, this is 412. I don't know what I need. Something just happened. A kid just..." He couldn't finish. How do you explain what we'd just seen? I was still standing there in the aisle, staring at the spot where the kid had been, when I noticed something on the floor. A piece of paper, right where his backpack had fallen. I picked it up. It was a bus transfer. Old style, the kind they hadn't used in years. The ink was faded, but I could still read the date. October 14th, 2018. 7 years ago. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and Googled "missing child, Maple Street." The results loaded. The first article made my blood run cold. Local boy, 8, missing after school. October 14th, 2018. The photo showed a kid in a blue jacket, clutching a Power Rangers backpack, smiling at the camera. Same face, same jacket, same backpack. Tyler Morrison. Last seen getting on the eastbound bus at Maple and 3rd. Never arrived at his babysitter's house. Security footage showed him boarding the bus at 3:47 p.m. No footage of him getting off the bus. The case went cold after 6 months. Never found. I showed Marcus the article. watched the color drain from his face. "That's impossible," he whispered. "I've been driving this route for 8 years." But even as he said it, I could see the memory clicking into place behind his eyes. 7 years ago, every driver had been questioned, every route had been searched, and they'd found nothing. Because Tyler Morrison never got on the bus. He was still on it, still riding, still crying, still asking for his stop, still waiting for someone to let him off at a destination he'd never reach. I got off at the next stop. So did everyone else. Nobody said a word, just filed off silently and scattered in different directions. I walked the rest of the way to work. Took me an hour, didn't care. 3 days later, there was a small story buried in the local section. Cold case reopened, new lead in Tyler Morrison disappearance. Anonymous tip had led investigators back to the bus route. But all I could think about was that small voice repeating the same phrase over and over. "This is my stop. This is my stop." And I wondered if Tyler Morrison was trying to tell us something all along. Not that he'd missed his stop, that he never had one. That somewhere, somehow, he'd gotten on a bus that didn't go anywhere real, that just looped through time and space, picking up and dropping off passengers in the living world, while he stayed trapped in between, crying and asking, and never, ever getting home.